My name is Sylvia Cohen. I'm conducting an interview with Mr. Itzhak Kotkowski. Today is May the 26th, 1998. We're in El Paso, Texas, in the United States, and we will be speaking English. You focus on me. Please tell me your name.
My name is Itzhak, or Itzhak, like they call me, Kotkowski.
Could you spell that, please?
Yes, I-T-Z-H-A-K. Kotkowski will be K-O-T-K-O-W-S-K-I.
Thank you. And was that your name at birth?
This is the name at birth, but they call me also Izio. I-Z-I-O, Izio.
And where were you born, Mr. Kotkowski?
I was born in Warsaw, Poland.
And what year?
This was in 1921, December 25th, 1921.
And how old are you?
Today I am 76 years old.
And please tell me, how many members of your family were there?
I would say very many from my mother's side. I remember about 15 at least people, because my grandmother had 16 children.
And your immediate family?
Immediate family, I have 3 sisters, and I was the only one son.
And their names?
The names, I would go from the older one, Esther Malka. They call her later Maria in Mexico. Anya, which is now Anne, she is alive, and Dorenka, Dorothy. She was killed.
And your parents' names?
My father's name is Abraham Henoch Kotkowski, and my mother's name is Enta Kotkowski.
Tell me a little bit about your life at home. Was it a happy home?
To talk about, very, I would say it was my best time of my life. We were middle class, if we can make comparison with today middle class in the United States. It was a middle class. There were not too many middle class Jewish in Poland, but it was a happy, very, very cozy, very warm family. All of us had education, all of my sister, myself. My mother was trying very hard to keep us going to the schools. My father was exceptional hard worker, and he worked 12 hours a day to provide us with the best he could.
What kind of work did he do?
He had a small business. All the businesses, middle class was small business, and he was selling, I don't know, all kinds of kitchen items and other things like this I think that's, I don't know how to say in English, but anyhow, this was a general business which sells many things for domestic use.
And were your parents religious? Did you have a religious home?
Yes. My father was Orthodox. He wasn't very much on one or another side, but he was, I know and I remember him to put tefillin every day go to the synagogue every Saturday, and I always try to be next to him as the only son, and he was very religious in a way, because he also did a lot for the Jewish community. He was a member of Hesed ve'emes, which is like to take care of the ritual after when somebody died. So this was Hesed ve'emes.
And about yourself, did you have many friends?
I had about I had the most beautiful time up to age when I left Poland. It's up to 17. I went to a best school you could imagine in Warsaw. It was a big sacrifice for my parents. The name of the school was Chinuch, very well known. And of course, like all the young people, I had fun. I like very much music. We all like music in our family, because my sister Maria, or Malka, Esther Malka, they called her Marisha. Marisha was studying in conservatorium. She was one of the best in those days in Warsaw. So we were very proud. And I like music. Frequently I went to opera and to orchestra, symphony orchestra, because the friends of Maria knew how to put me between orchestra, or sometimes without or with ticket. So that was a nice time. Every summer we went to a places like we call this dacha, for 3 months. It was just the best, I think, I can imagine.
Did you experience any anti-Semitism at that time?
Anti-Semitism in that time. You see, I was not prepared as a 17 years old to understand what I know today. I didn't read about those things. My feeling of anti-Semitism was from the street. For some reason, people said to me and my father, "Oh, don't go there, because you see a group of Polish people who will maybe try to start some problems with you." So this was the anti-Semitism, what really I knew. But I was so involved in my life and the life of Poland that I felt that I am part of it, that I am part of Polish people. So the anti-Semitism was for me something which grew together until I got to the age when I left Poland. The real problem started after the German came.
May I ask you, what was the Jewish community like at that time, the general Jewish community?
The general Jewish community, of course, was run by people who can afford. They contribute very much. This is more or less the same like all over. And because there were so many parties among the Jews, you know, there were Orthodox, not Orthodox, coalition, left coalition, right coalition. They were leftists, they were rightists, they were all kinds. They were organization which was seeing the future in a socialistic way, I would say. But if you are to answer your question, was quite divided, but you felt that we are together. We were not in ghetto yet, a ghetto made by the Germans, but you could feel that the life of the Jews were quite separate. The rich Jew tried to go out of the so-called ghetto those days, But the organization itself looks like we are tied together because of the common goals, maybe, and maybe because I have to answer the first question, anti-Semitism, which I didn't know how to describe those days.
When were you first aware of the Germans and what Hitler was doing?
You could feel this in 1939 from the beginning, January. I am sorry, and I'm sorry for all those people who didn't read enough to understand. Now I understand what was going on. Hitler started his policy against the Jews years before the 1939, when they invade Poland. But I felt this on the street. I felt in the newspaper, in the radio. We didn't have television, of course, those days. So we felt that something is going on. Preparation, very often our generals talk about the future, that we are very strong, that we are not going to give any piece of our land to the Germans. So this gave me the idea that something is cooking.
And how did your family, particularly your father, how did he feel about it?
It was, I am sorry to say that my father, who talks perfectly German, and he did business in all the time with the German companies like Solingen, famous knives and so on. He always said that the Germans are very civilized people, that we don't have to worry about them because they are the nicest. They gave Beethovens, and they gave Bachs, and they gave Goethes. They gave the best people in what we could mention. So it cannot happen. Nothing can happen. But we didn't even think about the war. You are asking me the question, the feeling is before. We didn't expect that the war is going to grow.
And when did that happen for you?
It's happened terribly for everybody. In 1939, September 1st, the Germans attacked Poland. We didn't expect this because we heard about beautiful stories about France and England be ready to help Poland, that they are not going to permit anything should happen to Poland. But it was false. They attacked Poland, and let's put this way, they destroyed Poland in a few days. The war was 30 days. Brave Polish people was fighting with the horses against the tanks. This is the first time in the history of the military power came with a very, with something which is known now, blitzkrieg, the war of speedy war, and they applied it. They had the best planes, they have the most modern weaponry, so they smashed Poland. If they say 30 days, it was 15, 20 days. It was chaos. Poland was left alone. The generals went to Romania, and suddenly we figure out we are face to face to the Nazi Germany, which for my father, who always used the word Germany, Nazi, from this time on, I never used the word Germans. I didn't want to offend even the composers I love so much. So I use Nazis, the word Nazis, but this is how it started.
And where were you when the bombing started?
We were, of course, my sister Maria was in Mexico those days. And Anne, Johnson, which is alive. She's in New York. My father, my mother, Dorenka, my sister, myself. We were in Warsaw, and we are under the bombs. We are under siege. What I do? We have to prove the first time in our life what main war is, the terrible consequences, the terrible way of killing people from the very beginning, because they didn't care to choose objects, Germans. They just bombed the whole Warsaw. They spared some houses, like academy house, or some other big houses, which they will use in future. They knew it in advance. They will use it as headquarters for the Gestapo or for SS or whatever organization they had in mind. So they did a terrible job, and they destroyed Warsaw.
And how long did you stay in Warsaw, your family and you?
Luckily for me, this is a story of my life. Like my books say, wiles of destiny, some tricks of destiny. After 15 days, I was taken to work for the Germans, to clean some car. I remember it was a house of academic. They call this Dom Akademicki. This is a house, academic house. Beautiful building with whatever you can expect those days. One of the nicest in Warsaw. They took us, and one of the Germans, I will never forget his face. I wouldn't like to compare him with the animals because I would offend animals. He was terrible. He started talking to me, and I didn't know what he wants from me. And I said, ich verstehe nicht, in German, the few words I knew, and he gave me, almost knocked me down. He gave me a fist. I don't know how to say this in English, and my eyes and my everything. And in this moment, I decide, Ijo, if you will leave Warsaw immediately. I didn't know if I will survive, because I couldn't believe that I can stand another fist like this, or another hit like this. So I said to myself, if I will survive, that's it. I'm going to leave Warsaw. It was exactly like it is. After working 7, 8 hours, 9 hours, I approached to some of the Germans. It seems to me a nice guy, and I told him in Polish and then in a little German that I was very sick, and this is true, about 3 weeks before the war, and I would like to go home. I don't know, heaven. He sent me, let's go. And I went home, and I told my parents, I decided to leave Warsaw. They are going to kill you, all of you. Please, do whatever you can. Leave your money, leave everything you have, because we saved his business from fire. So when he had, let's say, $10,000, he had $1,000, but he was so attached to his business that for him was everything. So he said, how you dare to say something like this? You don't know what life is, my father said. I said, you can talk, you say whatever you say. But my mother, which I consider a saint, she said to me, and I remember like up to this day, during the war, nobody has a right to give advice to somebody. Everybody has to decide for himself. And I decided to leave Poland, let's say Warsaw, and we hire a chauffeur. This was in the beginning, who took a group of people to another, to occupy Poland by Russians. Because in this moment, when the Russians came to Warsaw, we learned that Stalin and Hitler make a pact. They divide Poland. The border was Buk River, San River, and another river. Whatever it is, was a Russian side, Soviet side, and German side. So I felt, like many others, that this would be the safest way to go to the Soviet side. So this is what I did.
And do you remember what year that was and the
Yes,
date?
it was in 1939, October 1939.
And what happened when you got there?
When I got there, truly it was another atmosphere. It was the first time in my life I saw Russians, Soviet Russia. Comparison with the Germans, they were very poor. They used horses against tanks, German tanks. I compared them and I said to myself, oh, mamma mia, they can never be stronger than the Germans. But it was a nice atmosphere because they wanted the people to feel good about them. So it was a lot of music on the streets, propaganda. Stalin is the biggest, Lenin is the biggest, you know. Sometimes I was laughing to myself, saying this is good for children, this is not for grown people. But that's what the way. I was for a few weeks together with a family Polak. It's interesting. Maybe one day, maybe through this, they would say he was a owner of a very big textile factory.
And his name was?
Pollak, P-O-L-L-A-K. Because he was a brother of one of our neighbors in Warsaw. We knew where I can go when I'm coming to Bialystok. This was in city of Bialystok. And good enough, he told me the first story about the Soviet regime. That he, in his factory, he became an employee, no more. He wasn't anymore owner of his place. But he had to work and to show the big shots who, in Russia, everybody knew everything better than everybody. It was to laugh, you know. But he was completely destroyed. And this was the first case I saw a man who is owner of something destroyed because they took everything from him. I couldn't stand this atmosphere. I left, and comes my going to Lvov, the other city, back here with my friends and so on. I describe this very, very, very much in my book because you can meet in my book my friends, my close friends, who came on this side. And I don't know why in December, 24th of December, one day before my birthday, I was so homesick that I didn't know what to do with myself. Meanwhile, I make some money. My father never believed that I could make some money. I make some money on the market because of the watches. Nobody had to be a very smart businessman to make money in those days, because you just show a watch. Next day you bought another 10. You know, so it wasn't a big thing, but I decided to go back home. It was the most stupid idea I ever had in my life. But you see something, during the war you don't know what can happen. They catch me on the border. The the Ukrainians in the Soviet army. Ukrainians with the Soviet army. That's why up to this day, I have such a bad feeling about them. They catch me
And this was
together with a group of people, and they accuse us to be related to Count Radziwiłł. Count Radziwiłł was very, very important, belonged to very, very important family in Poland, like Saint Rothschild here or whatever. And of course, he was enemy of the state of the Soviet, being a very powerful man, owner of land and so on and so on. So they asked, and they found some papers on the floor. It was snowing. It was November. So whose paper? Who threw this paper? They asked. Nobody answered. To make it short, they put us, all of us, in prison in Bialystok without any questions. So I was.
And what year was that?
Hmm?
And what year was that?
This was exactly a few days before New Year. So it was cold and miserable and bad. And then we came to the Bialystok, was too hot. But it was terrible, terrible. This was the worst thing I ever saw. You could see it only in the movies, believe me. So I was there 7 months in Bialystok.
And the
prison.
year was 19...
This was exactly the first of the year.
1940.
Okay. But I would say this 39 because few days before they catch us on the border and they didn't want to leave, let us go. Those days the Russians was arresting many people. They didn't care. If you, let's say, if a group of people, 15 people, 20 people, families, if somebody said something wrong about the government or did something wrong, they rather took everybody and not looking for the one who is really guilty. So this is later who knows the Soviet Russia's problem, you know, they know what it is.
We are coming to the end of tape number 1. We're starting tape number 2. Mr. Kotkowski, you said that you were picked up and you were put into a prison in Bialystok.
Yes.
And how long were you there?
I was 7 months in prison.
How were you treated in that prison? Did you have enough to eat? Did you have enough clothing?
They didn't bother about clothing because they didn't give us anything. Whatever we brought with us, that was. Food-wise, well, like wild animals, waiting for the once a day they came with the soup. And of course, everybody was looking to find something, a pot of water, whatever it is. It was very bad. And you could see because I was in a place of 105 people. Can you imagine 105 people together in a big, big salon, which is not salon, celt, no? All kinds of people, from all the, from thieves to professors. You could find every kind. So you could see the difference between the people, how they behave in situation like this. But everybody, hunger is a terrible sickness. I learned from the prison of Bialystok. This is the first time I learned what hunger is. We were like wild animals. Of course, after a while we start talking. Some people could talk, to discuss something. But the atmosphere was very tense, very tense. But miraculously, how you say this, it wasn't, we didn't feel any animosity among the people. Not anti-Semitism, nothing special against the thieves, nothing special. We were so deep in our problem, that our problem was so tragic that we didn't feel that it's something still from the pre-war time that we could like this kind of people, another kind of people. We just didn't bother about who is who. Bread was the main thing on our head.
Did they assign any work for you to do any work?
Not at all. Not at all, because it wasn't a camp. It wasn't a camp. It was prison. They keep us with an idea to send us to the camps, which we are going to talk about this a little bit later. One of our biggest enemies was lies. And we are talking about lies. Somebody asked me, why you are talking so much about the lies? How I cannot talk about it? We were surrounded by millions of lies. Millions. We were using them sometime with a joke. So, oh, I found a blondie one. I found a brunette one, and I found this one. Mine is better. We play with the lies. This was terrible. So hunger and lies. This is what I can say, generally speaking, about the life of our in prison.
And did they give you anything to combat the lice? Were you bathing there? Was there any medicine?
Not medicine. They gave us chance to go once a day to a bathroom. Sometimes we didn't have even time, because it was everything by hour. So if this is half an hour, and I wasn't strong enough to fight for my place, so I came back the same way. Now, with the little water they gave us, you cannot clean the body. No way. So.
And you were there for 7 months, you said?
7 months.
And then what happened?
Then, during the time I was there, and this is a sad story about the Soviet regime, I was called for interrogation. The interrogation, who know the system of Soviet Russia those days, was very simple. They didn't care about you. They care to accomplish something. Let's say they form so-called troika. Troika is three in Russia. NKVD, which is this is a police, state police, choose 3 people to decide about my future, about my destiny. And they took in consideration, oh, I am a guy 17, 18 years old. They look at my fingers and my hands, or they are clean because I didn't work. They knew that my sister, now comes the sister, my sister was in Mexico, and Trotsky was in Mexico those days.
How did she get to Mexico?
This was a story of, he decided to go to Mexico because of, my father didn't allow her, or no, let's say push her not to marry somebody she loved very much. So she decided to go to Mexico because she had other friends which before her went to Mexico. And Maria, in those days, Trotsky was in Mexico. It was easy for them to say, oh, you are Trotsky, a Trotskyist or whatever. Trotsky was in Mexico, your sister is in Mexico, she is pianist, she is a spy, you are a spy. You know, the talking stories. I said, but I have nothing to do with this. What I know, I was 17 years old when I left home. How you can say that I am, this is like talking to the, they decided that I am a SOE, SOE, which is socialno opasny element. That means I am an enemy of the state. It was enough, and taking in consideration my age, and maybe they like me, maybe they like me, they decided to give me 8 years.
8 years where?
Of so-called educational camps. They call this educational. This is a beautiful name. We didn't know what educational means, but we knew afterwards when they sent us. So I get 8. Another professor, Wozowski, which was together with me, and I knew him because of his book. He was pro-Soviet, and he got 15 years. Other get 7 years, other 8 years, and other didn't even get any special terms. They just ignored them. In those days, you didn't even ask what is the system, where is the lawyer, where is this. Doesn't mean for us Americans to ask a question like this, you didn't have right to do this? No right. It was completely absent, you know. They did what they did, totalitarian regime, and that's it. I describe this very well in my book. And there are thousands of books you can read about this. I am not politician, but the thing is that I was accused of being enemy of state, and the day came and they decided that the group, my group, should go to the concentration camps. Of course, the very important thing about how they moved the people was they didn't keep us in the same group. Let's say, if I knew group of 15 people, for some reason, next time they divide us. We never talk to the same people. This is very important because you will ask me, of course, what happened later. It's very interesting to say something about this, what I just said. So they decided one day, a soldier, not even officer, not even lawyer, nobody, came and say, Itzhak, Kotkowski, yes, sign. What sign? 8 years. 8 years what? 8 years what? Where is the lawyer? Where is this? Naive, I didn't know what to answer. I don't have time. If you want to sign, sign. If not, anyhow, you are going to sit in the, anyhow, you are going to be in the camp. Okay. So I can come back. I have said to my friends, it's like a comedy, no? But people knew, and they said, it's not a comedy. You are going to be there, and you are going to suffer these consequences. When later I found people who are in concentration camps, gulags, the Russian concentration camps, for 15, 20, 25 years, from the very beginning, from the Soviet Bolshevik Revolution, I didn't laugh anymore. It was true.
And so where did they send you?
They sent us to by train. They sent us to Arkhangelsk.
Can you spell that?
Arhangelsk. Arkhangelsk. K on the end. Arkhangelsk. This is a port situated on the White Sea. This is it was a transit camp. transit camp, very big one, very well known from the Tsar's time. And in this transit camp, oh, by the way, this is very important because you asked me about my family, about Maria. On the way to Arkhangelsk, being in the wagons, it wasn't Pullman, it was a wagon like Nazi used for their prisoners. So looking through the window, I saw one of my friends from the school, and his name was Shifmanovich. He was son of one of our teachers. I said, Shifmanovich, you know who is talking? No, Itzhak Kotkowski. Oh, what are you doing here? I'm going to Russia.
Was he also on the train?
No, he was outside. Outside. He wasn't yet arrested, or I don't know what. It wasn't war yet. The war started a little bit later, when Russia started the war against when the Germans started the war against Russia. So I said, tell my mother, I said so, tell my mother that I am going to Russia, they should not worry about me. Good enough, after the war, my sister, she's now in New York, she said that they received this message. This is very interesting message, and my parents live in the hope that at least I am safe. Okay, so we arrived to Arkhangelsk. In Arkhangelsk, in this center, I learned the truth about the Soviet Russia. People who didn't know even what they are doing there. Not only European prisoners. You had from Uzbekistan, from Lithuanian, from Kyrgyzia, all over Russia, from all over the Russia. They concentrate them there, and they didn't know what I'm doing. I asked, what did you do? They didn't know. What I knew, and this is another truth about the Russia, that the thieves, bandits, assassins, they were the elite in the prison. They could do whatever they want because the Soviet Russia didn't worry about them. They trust them more than the politicians. So up to the last moment, up to this day, I would say, the gangs, the Russian gangs, this is how it started. I can see them. The gangs, the thieves, the assassins, they were the elite because they knew that after 5 years, whatever they did, they killed somebody or they made something wrong, they will go and nobody will put them again in prison. With politicians, it's something else. They could leave them for another, let's say, year, 2 years, and then they took them back because they never trust the politicians. If they didn't kill them, they keep them in the concentration camp until they die, because to live in these camps, 60 below zero, it wasn't easy at all. So in Arkhangelsk, I learned the truth, and they made 2 groups. I mentioned that there were people whom I didn't see anymore. Some groups, yes, and the next 2 weeks I didn't see them. This is good enough. I learned that when we left Arkhangelsk to go to the main place when they wanted to send us, I didn't see the other group. And 2 ships left the same time, the same day. 1 ship never arrived.
What year was that you left?
It was Arkhangelsk, it was 1940, about November, September, October, November, which is winter in those places. We're talking about Arkhangelsk and so on. winter is 9 months, and temperature is going down to 60.
And you say you got on a ship? They put you on a ship?
They put us in the ship. The ship itself was made to be sank. This wasn't a ship. It was something. It was only 1 week, but I can assure you, if I don't know if this is some way you are in this business of filming. I don't know if this is such a movie, which I know, which can describe what we went through during the week. People was dying, vomiting of each other, going through the board. They couldn't, we need air, we didn't have air, and things like this. It was 1 week until we arrived to a port named Naryan-Mar.
How many people were on board that ship? Do you know?
I cannot say, but it was full. I would say it was about 2,000–3,000 people.
And you slept on?
We slept. I didn't want to sleep because I need air, so I wanted to be outside, and outside was a terrible weather. So people was so weak, they couldn't even hold. So they went over the board. To make this story close, from the 2,000–3,000 people, if they arrive about 1,500, I don't think that more. And the second ship never arrived. After a year or something, somebody whom I met in concentration, in the camp, told me that is very often they sunk the ship completely with all the people. And I learned about this later. This is why I'm saying that it was separating. Maybe I was my destiny was to go because I was strong, young, so they put me in one place, and the other went to another place. But they didn't care. Let's put it this way. They didn't care. We were not human beings anymore. We are talking about story of when the human being doesn't exist. I think that the animals, talking about animals, the one they was using dogs, to watch after us, was having a beautiful life against us, So we cannot even say that we were human beings. We arrived to Naryan-Mar, destroy, and then after 2 days, the winter came. And our little barge stopped in the middle of River Pechora, and we make a march. We started to walk toward our future colony 22, which wasn't yet named 22 because we were the first human being in this part of the world. So we started to walk. The walking was again about 1 week. I am sure that 50% of the people died on this march.
How cold was it?
60 below zero. And I have names. Names of the people who died, and I couldn't help, because who didn't go forward was the last one, and sat down, never awake, never could stand up again. We came to a place surrounded by trees, forest, taiga, what they call taiga, and they said, "This is your home. Start to make your houses." So we started. This is how the colony 22 came to life.
They told you to make your own houses?
All places to live. So this is how we started. And I lost my hope. I was completely down. I didn't want to leave, let's put it this way. This is not the first time in my journey, you know, with my life, that I asked God to finish with my life. But I was saved by a Russian poet who, during the time we meet each other, was a very strange guy. I have a poem about him. He didn't allow me to die. He said, "Stand up. Let's start. You are not like Russians," he said to me. "You are very weak. Start, fight." And I started to fight. We make a fire. He helped me, and so on, and so on. And from the colony 22, after weeks, month, you could see chimney. They made a hospital, things like this.
You built it from the
wood.
From the wood.
Wood, because the the idea was to make they make from Vorkuta. Vorkuta is a very well-known place up to this day. Kotlas is the name of a city, of European city of Russia. We were in Arctic, not Siberia. It's the synonymous of Siberia is cold, terrible. We were worst. The the climate of where we were, but much worse than Siberia.
At this time, Mr. Kotkowski, did you have any news of your family? Anything?
Absolutely. We are so much isolated from the world that we sometimes, I'm ashamed to tell you this, sometimes was asking God that Germans should come to liberate us. Can you imagine something like this? Well, because I saw the Germans, and then I say, such a thing like this? This is the worst can be. People are dying all over. And where is the Russia? The Russia, everybody was saying the Soviet Russia with the liberty for the people and so on. So I am ashamed to say that many of us were thinking about being liberated by Germans. Can you imagine?
And
no, we're completely isolated. They try to escape 2, 3 intent. No way, no way. Thousands of miles around, around. White bears, nothing. They didn't even go after you. They sent dogs. The dogs came to place where you are, and they were sitting there until somebody came, and that's it. And I don't have to tell you what they did with these people. They suffer, and die.
And how long were you in this place?
I was up to Amnesty. We are talking generally speaking, because whatever we did and so on, and I'm telling you, with I wouldn't like to prolong this, because this is a story for hours. But we were there up to the Amnesty. Amnesty was in 19, if I'm not, Amnesty was in September 1941.
And you got there in
I got to the prison 1939 in December.
But
so it's about year, September. It was about 18 months.
And you did work there?
Work all the time, 12 hours a day, 12 hours a day. The food wasn't enough, of course. The only people who could get a little bit more, if they show that they can work more than usual. They called them Stakhanoviets. Stakhanoviets was the Soviet heroes who could work as many hours more than a normal guy. We didn't want to do it because they said to us, the people who knew, they said, don't work too hard. Even you will get more food, but you will die from you will die anyhow because you will be weak. You are not going to be able to survive.
And so you were there until Amnesty. What happened at that time at Amnesty?
Amnesty came exactly 3 or 4 months, if I'm not mistaken, because Russian-German war started June 22, and Amnesty was in September. So few months after they started, the German attacked Russia, they made a amnesty for all the Polish people, only for the Polish people, not for the Russian people, who were in this time in the camp. Because, oh, excuse me.
Oh, that's all right.
Because in this moment, it was a big change. Yesterday we were enemies. Today we have a same goal, to fight the Germans. Okay.
We're coming to the end of tape number 2. Mr. Kotkowski, you told us that Amnesty, how did the Amnesty affect you?
It was a miracle. We felt this as a miracle. We couldn't believe it. And all the Polish people, of course, Polish citizens, generally speaking. Among them, very many Jews, Polish people, Ukrainians, Lithuanians, some of them. Everybody had to be citizen. It was a miracle. This is something that we couldn't believe it. We were thinking that this is a maybe tricky thing that to take us to another place. No, it was true. I have to tell you that we left the camps with a broken heart, seeing all the Russian people whom we left behind will never go out from this devilish place. This was the only thing. We had a guilty complex, seeing them suffering and so on. They took us, or they told us, that we are going to go to the Polish army called Anders Army, the army who was organized by London, the English place, English, I would say, organization, I would say, under General Anders, who convinced Stalin and convinced all the people, allies of course, that the army will be useful for the Persian Gulf and for the war in Italy and so on. So this was the army, the Polish army. We came to the army to Totzk. This is the time we take from us, from our place to Totzk in Russia. From one place to another, you're talking about 1 month, 6 weeks to go. But we arrived to Anders' army before, it was September.
1941. How did they transport you?
This time they transport us, not the luxury wagons, but quite good. Of course, on the way, I don't have to tell you, we were looking for how to get something to eat. It was crazy. We get to Totzk, Buzuluk, Totzk, there are 2 names. And I'm sorry to say, from the very beginning, we start to feel anti-Semitism. Because first of all, they were not interested to get so many Jews in this army. They were very selective. Of course, I could be very easily taken because I know my Polish was good, you know, education, things like this. In this camp, they made a separate groups, which they call this K group. K like my name. In this camp, I met Menachem Begin.
Oh,
Menachem Begin, I did know he was older than I am, I guess, and he was smarter than I am. He knew he was in organization, you know, he was the rightist organization in Poland. So he knew what he wants. He wants to go to the Persian Gulf and close to Israel and escape, simple like that. It doesn't sound to me. I was so naive. Not only me, but many other people like me. So naive that I didn't realize even that they thought are so good that I would go after him. But I said I was offended. What's mean? Here is the war in Europe. Here is the war. I am going to the Anders army. I would rather go to the Russian army to fight because we knew already what Hitler did. So we started to get the feeling of the Holocaust. It started, but not yet. So I said, no, I will be rather in Russia and go with the Russians or the maybe new army, the Polish new army, so-called the Democratic Army, but not with the Anders army. It was maybe mistake. So I talked to him, we talked to him, but it was so naive to talk to him. He was looking at us like that we don't know what we're talking. But anyhow, because of the anti-Semitism and problems which I had, I don't want to bring the details, in November 11, we escaped. That's my friend, two friends. One of those friends is alive. I found him in New York. This is a nice story. But we left for the station. It was a holiday. November 11 is holiday, Polish holiday, important one. So we left because everybody was dancing and doing things, so drinking. We took our risk. The risk could cost us life because we didn't know if the train will go through the station. But anyhow, we found the train. It was stopped up to, we couldn't even go in. I don't know how. It's a nice story there. We start singing operas. So the officers, we saw that the officer, they have a very special look. You know, they look to me like intelligent guys. So I said to Kozlowski, his name was Kozlowski, the one who is alive in New York, let's start operas, Carmen, whatever. And good enough, they started, oh, who are you, who are you? They gave us food. The story is that we decided to go to the warm climate. This was what everybody, after being in a Siberia or being in Arctic, the only dream we had is to go to the warm, and we went to Tashkent.
And what year was this?
This was 1940. We are talking now 42. 42, more or less, we were on the territory of Tashkent. And from Tashkent, we were there in a very bad condition, of course. In those days, Russia was in a terrible condition. People going up, down, down, up. You didn't know who is who, but it was war. The war was going on. When we talk about Soviet Russia and Russia by itself, the territory is so big. So we were in Tashkent, and from the other side in Stalingrad, which is Stalingrad, Petrograd, and now Leningrad, which is now no, what is today Leningrad is okay. Anyhow, it was the war was in one side of Russia, and we were in Asia. Many people escaped from war and went to these places where I was, Tashkent, so on. By this time, Anders' army, the army talking about, left. They had very bad time also. Many people died in this army because of sicknesses and things like this. They took part, as you know, in Monte Cassino, the famous battle in Italy and other places. And finally, the Jewish people, majority, went to Israel, and they escaped from the army. And Anders knew it. The General Anders and the Polish government in London, they knew that they escaped, but they closed their eyes. They knew that they should not do anything about this. I learned this from Professor Kotkowski. He told me exactly. I read about this after the war. So we are in Tashkent. From Tashkent, we started to go here and back to talking about 2 months to go to Kyrgyzia, from Kyrgyzia to this place, from this place to another place, until we decided to go to the army. Not they decided, they took us to the army. And I went, they took me, they mobilized me to the Russian army in Petropavlovsk. It was short, it was very, very, very difficult. After, same story, being close to Leningrad, they give an order that all the Polish people, again the same story, should go. And we went back.
You went back where?
To the same places where we were before, in Kyrgyzia. It's a story by itself. I'm telling you, this is a story of ours. But I'm making it short. So we went back to these places, and then finally, in this was exactly April 1944, I mobilized in Zhytomyr. I mobilized to the Polish army, and I was with the Polish army. The army was organized in this Russian territory. They call it Democratic Army. They call it also Wanda Wasilewska Army. For the Polish people, the rightists, it was communist army. We didn't know that this is a communist army. This is the only army who was fighting on the territory, on the Polish territory, Russian territory, and went up to Berlin, you know. So for us, it wasn't democratic army. Now, when we talk about this, they say communist army, which I don't think this is true. We didn't know it. But anyhow, we were in the army from 1944 up to 1946. In between, in 1945, May was the end of the war. And also after the end of the war, I was together with my battalion in Warsaw, up to 46, 47, something like this, because you heard stories about the pogroms in Kielce in 1946, and visibly you could see the anti-Semitism growing in Poland. They wanted to do everything possible. They said, Żydzi do Palestyny, the Jews to the Palestine. They didn't want the Jews to be in Poland.
Mr. Kotkowski, may I go back a little bit and At this time, did you know anything about your family? Had you heard anything?
Being in the Polish army, I went in Lublin, in the city of Lublin. I met somebody who is our friend from Warsaw. And this was a lady. And this lady looked at me and say, "I am sorry to tell you something." And she started to cry. She couldn't say what. "I saw your whole family in August 44, 44, going to Treblinka. You have nobody in this world. Not even Anya, the Anya who, my sister who is now in New York. No, nobody." I was so disappointed. Not disappointed. For me, it was the biggest tragedy of my life, and I decided to go to a special battalion, like Green Berets, worse even. You cannot even compare. To fight and to die. This is what I wanted to do. And good enough, I did. I survived from there too. We were fighting the Ukrainians. You see, the partisans, the guerrillas, Ukrainians, the war was terrible. You know how the guerrilla war is. So I was in this, and then by chance, when I came to Warsaw, after the war is over, I came to Warsaw. I find out that my sister Anya is alive. They was hidden during the war from ghetto in a place which up to this day is a very special place on Kopernika 4 in Warsaw. They were saved by interesting, but officer from AK. AK was the rightist guerrillas of Poland. Many of them are accused to be also assassins for the people. Khrushchevsky was in this army, others was in the army. I know many cases that they helped Jews. Not all of them, I don't want to exaggerate. But they were safe, and I met, of course, my sister in Germany when I was, after the war, in München, in the DP camp.
But you met her first in Poland.
No, I met my brother-in-law. He
She
didn't
had
want
already...
to say that he's my brother-in-law. I didn't know him. This is a story for itself. He already gave this, because he's a very well known, especially for Spielberg, because as you know, he donated the Yad Vashem. The same statue you have in Warsaw, for the uprising of Warsaw, is the same in Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. It was donated by my brother-in-law. He is very well known, and his story is very well known in Poland and also here. So I met him in Warsaw. He told me that he's my brother-in-law, and then he said, "You better go to Germany, you will see your sister." When I went to the DP camp, New Freiman DP camp, I met my sister, of course, and she told me a beautiful story. This is a nice story. That they knew that I'm going to Russia. They didn't know what's happened to me, because my friend, as you remember, thought I asked him a favor to tell my mother. So they were guessing. So when she got married to my brother-in-law, my mother asked, "What would you?" That according to the Jewish faith, say, if under the chuppah you have a wish, this wish will become realistic. So we say, "I want Izio to be alive." So I am here. I am sorry. it was, of course, after this, I didn't think twice to go to Israel. I came to Israel, I was in the army. So this was the third army I was in. I was in the Israeli army, and in 1957 I left for Mexico. From Mexico in 1979, I came to United States.
And all this time, your sister, that you call Maria, was in Mexico? And did she know that you were alive?
Yes, because in between, through the committee or the, Jewish organized themselves, Haganah and so on, so I start sending letters. On my way to Israel, I was in Paris, and I saw my uncle who survived the war, and from this family, they were about 15 people, 20 people, they all was taken to Auschwitz, or the other camps, or Treblinka, they was killed. French Jews, they were saved, and they told us the story of the family, of course, which is another story for itself. So when I came to Israel, this was the first time I felt that I am doing something for my soul, for everything I love.
And what year was that you came to Israel?
Oh, this was 1948. 1948, and I was there up to 57.
Were you helped in the DP camp to go to Israel? Did they assist you?
The DP camp was organized for everybody, for everyone who wanted to find a place on his way to Israel or to United States. My brother-in-law chose to go to United States. I chose to go to fight. I was a professional soldier, so for me, fighting was some kind of profession. And then, how I was fighting for the Russian, for the Polish. Why I should not fight for Israel? This was my goal. In 1957, I decided to go because, again, I was in ambulances. I saw too many dead people. It came to a moment that I said, enough is enough. I cannot see more dead people. I saw millions of them. So I said, that's it. And I left because I wanted to see my sister Maria. Of course, it was my dream before the war in 1939 to unite with her because I love her, because we have something so much in common, special music. She was very, very famous in Mexico. By the way, I have some picture. She was very famous. She was giving concert. She was professor. She was teaching the biggest singers in Mexico. I was very proud. Mexico was the country which I was dreaming about when I was young. When I was 15, 16 years old, I already started to dream, and I knew about Mexico more than about other countries. So when I came to Mexico, it was a good time.
And when did you meet your wife?
I met in Israel. She was in the army, I was in the army. We both were in the army, and she was secretary of Moshe Dayan. So we met, and of course we met. We have two boys, as you know. Avi was born in Israel. Doron was born in Mexico. We have two grandsons, which is absolutely incredible, because when I talk to you about the Lublin, when my friend said, you have nobody, so I was the only Kotkowski. So I said to myself, with me, I'm going to fight the guerrillas, no Kotkowski anymore. And thank God, I have 2 sons and 3 grandsons, and myself. So we are 6 Kotkowski now, which makes the story rosy a little bit.
And when you went to Mexico to meet your sister, your wife's name is what?
Aviva.
Aviva. And Aviva went with you at that time?
Aviva
To Mexico?
No, she left. She was in Israel until I prepare all the papers, all the documents, so she could come. It took her 6 months, more or less. But she liked Mexico in those days was very nice country. Very nice.
And how did you come to El Paso in the United States?
You know, I'm working up to this day. I'm working for an automotive line. So Mexico I couldn't stand Mexico City's pollution. I couldn't stand. I was going every day to work and so on. I said to my wife, I don't know if I have to die in Mexico or I have to leave. I survived so many things. I cannot stay in Mexico. I can move to another place, but where we are going? You are not going to feel good if you are going to other places. So I decided to go someplace. I wanted to go to Laredo.
Where?
Laredo, Texas, because I had some connection with a very big firm. But my wife said, no way. So the only place she looked more or less decent was El Paso, and I'm not sorry. That was exactly a good choice. And I am still here. And as you know, in 10 days I am going to Poland the second time. 13 years ago I visited for a few days Poland. I want to see all these people which know me. I'm talking about Polish people, places, show my wife the story a little bit, a touch. You cannot describe with words what we went through, but you can, if you are talking about this or you are showing the places, it's completely different. So I hope that I am going to accomplish something very important in Poland. I know that my English, you heard, is not enough, not good enough for some group of people in the United States who know better English than I do and so on. But I am assured that in Poland I will be able to express myself much better, and the people know the history, my history, much, much better than the Americans. So I think that altogether it will be something which lay on my heart. I want to do it, I want to accomplish, and I want to see the place where I know where my parents, ashes of my parents are. Maybe this is the last time. I will make Kaddish for the dead people.
And why did they ask you to come to Poland?
You know Khrushchevsky. Professor Khrushchevsky is very
Tell us who he is.
Is very well known, and he helped me in translating the book from Polish to English, and now to English to Polish. Very important writer.
He lives where?
Here, Khrushchevsky. He's a professor of political science, but the same token, he's very well known in Poland. So he organized for me kind of introduction of my book together with some questions they want to ask me, because they try in Poland today to make polemics because of the Pope, Polish Pope. You know, it's very interesting that Polish Pope contributes so much to make the Jewish Polish question, make it in another perspective.
We're coming to the end of tape number 3. You were just we're starting tape number 4. You were just telling us about the Pope and a different perspective on it, and please explain.
I have, even in my house, you can find 4 or 5 books written by Polish writers and Jewish writers who are living in Poland, who decide that they should be in Poland, because if they will leave Poland, according to their thought, if they will leave Poland, then Hitler will win twice. Then Hitler will win the war, because this was his purpose, to destroy the Jews. We cannot allow that Poland, who suffer very much, and we are talking about the Jewish people especially, we cannot allow, they say, that we will just forget about the incredible history of Jewish people in Poland. 700-800 years generation. We are talking generation, we are talking about my parents, 5 generations. You cannot just say, oh, forget about this. We live with this. I want to remind this to people. I want to remind this also to my grandchildren. They should know that, first of all, I was thinking about this many times. And I don't want to bring the questions of religion here, because this is not a place to talk about religion. But you see, I was suffering very much because of the fact of Holocaust, of so many, not only Jews, of the 65 million of people who died in the Second World War. I don't want to question the role of God in this whole story. I came to a conclusion for me. This has nothing to do with other people. That God has nothing to do with this. This was the people who did what they did. For some circumstances, this is too deep to explain this, but I cannot blame God for this, because then it will change completely my way of seeing many other things. So my message would be to my grandchildren, hatred would bring hatred. If you hate somebody, it's no way to stop it. It's no way to stop. Then somebody will hate you. Then you commit mistake by hating more, and so on. It doesn't make sense. It will come to the same story as always. Like the Latin proverb say, homo homini lupus est, that man to a man is like wolf. It is as a lot of this. People commit mistakes, or the whole history. Adam, Eve, Cain and Abel. The first war started with Cain and Abel. Up to this day, nothing changed. So we have to take it the way it is, and I cannot change the mind of people, especially my grandchildren, who are living in a country like America, with all the bad things we have, still is the best country. You can express yourself, you can go on the street, nobody will bother you. Oh, I am not saying that everything is rosy, but it is a country, and I am very proud to be here.
Mr. Kotkowski, is there anything that you want to add to what you've already told me that you think might be important, or if not, it's okay?
I would go I would, you see, I have a problem. When I go to Poland now, you yourself, other people, will ask me questions, what you are going to say. You know, there are so many anti-Semites around in Poland. Again and again, I have to say, I have to help these rabbis and all these people not to change the Polish people or other people, you know. No. I want to bring the facts, who we are, what the contribution of the Jews in this world. This is what I want to bring. I don't want to talk about the facts. Oh, this guy was bad for me. This guy was good for me. He's anti-Semitic. He's not. Anti-Semitism is a sickness for me. It's like a sickness. It's something you have to put in somebody's head. You could make from a Jewish boy, 3 years old, a Hitlerjugend, you know, a guy who will be a SS man. This is a question of education. So I would like to talk about the good things every human being has. This is the important thing. This is the message we should say. And by writing my book, after so many millions of people die, I think that everybody like me and other like me should say something to contribute, to save the people as long we are alive. What's happened, and we should go forward looking for better world, to put a little bit from our side, because I believe in what I call balance. Balance. This is the biggest thing God makes, according to my way. God make a balance. And the balance is between good and bad. And as long we are on the side, positive side of this balance, we can contribute something to the world. And this is my message.
Mr. Kotkowski, thank you so much for sharing your very unique story with me.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Kotkowski, please tell me who this is a picture of.
They are my parents, Abraham Hanoch, Enta, and they were very young. It was taken in 1921. Were still young. I purposely make this picture because they were young, they look nice, and I wanted to always remember them like this.
That's the year you were born, isn't it?
This is correct. I was 1921. And I had other pictures, but I prefer this one because, as I said, this reminds me something more than normal. I want to remember them like this. Okay, as you can see, this is a truck, military truck, but this is Studebaker, made in United States, of course, and this was a time that the war changed to our favor, exactly because of the help we get. We get a lot of help from United States. You can see it at the sample. This is a Studebaker who make the history for our battalion.
It was given to which army?
The Polish army.
The Polish army.
The Polish army.
And Mr. Kotkowski, what is this document?
This document is the driver license, the first driver license issue in Poland after the war. Because I was in a auto battalion, was given to me, I was the one of the first to receive this. And this was issued in March 1946. No, I am not going to have this here.
Yeah, sorry.
Mhm. This was our wedding day, March 3rd, March 27, excuse me, and 1952. I'm sorry that I have this here, 52. And it was a very happy moment.
And
we
you-
are married 46 years
And where did you get married? In what country?
in Israel.
Was your family able to attend with you?
And no, I was, her family, of course, because they are not survivors. They just came to Israel like regular pioneers those days, but I was alone. But was a very special moment, because changed my life. From being, let's say, guerrilla, I start to be again a normal human being.
Okay. And who are these young men with you?
On the left side is Avi. Avi is in Hebrew my father. His name is Abraham, because my father was his name was Abraham. We called him Avi, which in Hebrew is my father. On the right side is Doron, which is a gift in Hebrew.
And how old are they today?
Oh, Doron was born 61, and Avi 54.
And do they live in the United States?
No, my Avi lives next to us in El Paso. I would say today Ciudad Juarez, and my son Doron is in New York. He's working for a very important company, Arthur Andersen, and he is CPA.
Okay. Tell us who's in this picture, please.
Of course, on the left side, from the left side, it's my son, Avi. In the middle is my nephew from family. Of course, I am here on the right side. The nice lady is Miriam, which is the wife of Avi. And on the right side, my wife and the three beautiful children. Eitan is 9 today.
And he's the one sitting on Miriam's lap?
Flat, yes, who just came from New York by himself. And Arik is in the middle, and this is almost 3 years old, is Gidon. As you know, as you can see, all have biblical name.
Okay, and this picture?
And this picture was made in Holocaust Museum of El Paso. You can see on the right side some plaques, and my wife and myself. Okay. This is my sister Maria. She was born in 1910. She died 5 years ago. Excellent pianist, excellent teacher in music, bacteriology, very, very special woman. I would say very few, not because she's my sister, but very few women on such an intellectual level. And she's very important when we talk about the family, about what happened and so on. I think that Maria is very important.
What year did Maria go to Mexico?
In 1933. Excuse me. 36. 1936. So she was spared. She didn't have to go through all this problems.